welcome to SPAZZOID Studio, New York City. Ray Pinky Velazquez. We'll get to the Pinky part at some point.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. No,
James.
I definitely wanted to meet you and speak with you years ago, but it just never came to fruition. But why don't we start at the beginning? Now, long before you started DJing, you obviously got into music somehow through your family, through your upbringing.
My dad plays a Spanish guitar. He's very good at it. He's been offered film offers to play guitar in Spanish movies. My mother grew up, and both my parents grew up in Puerto Rico in the same town, and they married in the same town in the northern part of the island, Arecibo, Puerto Rico. And my mother, at a young age, she used to sing on a radio station in Puerto Rico. And I have some of her old 78 discs reflecting that. And I guess that's where the musical connection in the genes may lie, and bouncing over into their first child, which was me, back in 1955. That's where the genetic connection comes in. And I grew up in the 60s, basically listening to pop radio, the Stones, the Beatles, having a big impact on me emotionally with what they did, and growing up with all that whole British invasion coming into the States, and pop radio and Motown affecting the airwaves and giving me that soul side of things. And I think my roots are my sense of melody and lyrics are stemmed from that aura. Now, getting into dance and disco, obviously as you're growing up, you love music, and it appeared that the early club scene, intrigued me by the fact that you were entertaining a lot of people. People were dancing, and there was big sound systems, and one person controlling the dance floor. And that kind of was an extension of me listening to radio and being on the quote-unquote dance floor as a listener on a radio station. I was the quote-unquote dancer or the listener. But actually going to a club and experiencing that gave me a different angle, a different tentacle of how music can motivate me, inspire me, and I became very curious of the club scene.
And when did you actually start physically DJing? I mean, you obviously were buying records long before that, but then you figured, okay, let me play records to the public. Let me get a reaction. Let me feed off that.
I think one, if not my first attempt to play music, was either one of two events. One, a friend of mine, I attended Cardinal Hayes High School in the Bronx back in the 70s. And Cardinal Hayes, I met a few friends that became good friends of mine at Cardinal Hayes. And one friend, Ruben Quinones, and his brother Noel would do events at their elementary school in the Bronx. Blessed Sacrament was the name of the school. And I got invited to one of those parties where Noel was the DJ. And I was completely blown away and was asked to play a few records. And I didn't know how to actually, quote unquote, DJ as we know it today, segue from one song to another with a mixer. It was just two turntables, okay, without a mixer. So I played
crossfader, or you just let one record
one record at a time, very primitive style.
Dave Mancuso style.
Exactly, David Mancuso.
well,
with his
the
yes,
yeah.
You know, that kind of a style. God bless that. You mentioned David Mancuso, another inspiration in my life. And I learned how to DJ, or at least get the inspiration, by playing a few records at that party at Blessed Sacrament. And then I went to City College when I graduated from Cardinal Hayes in the Bronx. And at City College, I did a few more separate parties for an organization in the college. And my spinning abilities were beginning to take shape. And you know, it's funny, in those days, what I would do as a DJ to get my confidence going was I would write down sets. I would write down, this record will mix into this record, this record will mix into this record, and I had a little format of mixed songs in advance to get the parties going. I realized that was not going to be a good idea after experiment, because you have to really analyze the dance floor. You have to feel the spirit of that dance floor. You have to feel the momentum. And what if the dance floor is all one type of an audience, for example, all black or all white or all Hispanic, and your music is not catering to that specific, so your program is not absorbed.
The pre-programming can only work if you know the kind of exact crowd you're going to have.
Exactly. And even then, you know, you have to watch people. People come in and they may want to start dancing late, and you're into your program.
Well, your programs that you said you couldn't do because you didn't know the crowd, were those based on tempo? I mean, you were basing them on tempo?
I was basing them on tempo because I was beginning to understand that a lot of DJs were using that beats per minute concept. And I wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to fit in. So I started learning beats per minute and followed that protocol.
And back then, you know, we didn't have all the fancy technology to count the BPMs. Back then it was like you had to, and then also the records had live instruments, and the tempo would drift.
Change based on, that's correct.
Wasn't that easy?
No, that's correct. You know, there were good things about the old era. You know, obviously the analog studio sound, the 12-inch records. Nothing, in my mind, nothing compares to that sound. The CDs don't compare. The flash drives, they don't. You know, but you know, it's an evolving business, and it takes its course based on where the money is for the business, and it's going to evolve. And if what the youth is looking for is the equipment more so than the spirit of controlling a dance floor, that's the way it's going to go. And it's BPMs, and it's the high-tech equipment, and it's evolved to what it is today. But there is a, what I think, James, a slow comeback, a slow curiosity about vinyl making its way back into, and obviously it's because I think everything needs to be explored. You know, the truth has to surface from everything. And if technology is guiding the light, but somehow there's something missing, DJs, the field of technology wants to be a little bit more curious, and here comes the curiosity of knowing where all this music comes from. Vinyl is at the forefront. and here we are experimenting with vinyl again.
I think you have a combination of older DJs, older music people
Yeah.
that either they don't want to let go of vinyl, or maybe they use both. Maybe they use digital and vinyl, and they still bring a certain amount of vinyl to the gig just to get that physicality.
Sure.
Of course, some of them have completely abandoned vinyl. Like I was talking to Joey Lanos.
Yes.
At the Joy Party. I don't know if you know about that party. It's in Brooklyn. And he told me he's completely digital now. So that you have those kind of folks, but then you also have younger DJs who never experienced vinyl to begin with. To them, it's new.
Absolutely.
To them. So they want to experience that. So you have a combination of old
school, new school. I was at that party on the garage reunion.
Which one?
The one in Brooklyn. Trying to remember the name of the place. I'm not sure if it was Joy or.
Well, Joy is a Loft spinoff.
Okay.
It's not the garage.
Right, so no, I was not at that one, but it was the garage reunion.
They still have them every year, I think.
Every year, yeah, and
Joey
was there, and David DePino.
Right.
They were both there. They're always there.
And Francois
David
too.
DePino, I didn't see Francois there. He might have been there. It was pretty crowded. I walked around and it was hard to even walk around. There was so many people.
Yeah, Francois is usually with DePino and
they're usually together.
The three of them. Yeah. I saw them. This going off on a tangent a little bit. I saw them. They did a Body and Soul party earlier this year at this big. I don't even know what it was, man. It's complex, huge, maybe 3,000 people. It was
amazing. I'm pretty sure.
But to tell you the truth, Ray, I have to be honest. In my old age, I prefer the smaller, more intimate parties because I like to vibe with people more intimately.
It. You hit it right on the nose. I went to that garage reunion and there was so many people. And the music gets louder.
It's very loud.
When you have more people absorbing the sound. So it was difficult for me to network.
Right.
The way my intent was to go there and network, and I couldn't really talk. And those that I was able to meet, I'm trying to yell into their ears, so to speak, and it was not really working out well. The communication was not well.
I find these venue parties, that's exactly what happens. You end up either you spend the whole night on the dance floor, or you spend the whole night in a corner somewhere trying to not get trampled.
Yeah, right.
That's why these days I go to a lot of more
smaller,
even private parties.
Yeah,
like that party I was telling you about is run by a couple of Japanese guys who knew David Mancuso and did their own spin-off of it, and then they only let in 100 people. That's it. It's the guy's apartment. It's a kind of a loft space, but. And you spend the whole night. You can dance if you want to. You don't have to. You can talk. You can have food. You can.
It's more of a laid-back setting with music.
I like
kind of a house party, almost type of a.
Yes, and you get to but a lot of times I end up talking about music, which is great, which is what I love to talk about. But getting back to you,
yes.
So you were DJing and you at this place here, for example, on 84th Street.
Right. Cartoon Alley.
What year, more or less, would that be?
That was perhaps around 83, 4, something like that.
So this is already during your tenure at Vanguard.
That's right around, I left Vanguard, I think about 84, 85, so it would have been crossing that.
Okay, so how did you... go from your DJing, you made the rounds enough to meet up with the owners of Vanguard, Seymour, I forget the other guys.
Maynard and Seymour Solomon.
Okay, two Seymours.
The Solomon brothers, yes.
And so, but that label, Vanguard, had been around since the 50s.
They built their fortune. The Solomons built their fortune on classical and jazz. That's been the catalog of the label. The dance music department, Vanguard Dance, Vanguard Disco, back in the late 70s, early 80s, that became what I would call, for Maynard Solomon and Seymour Solomon, a novelty for them. They really didn't want to venture into dance music, but they saw that a lot of the major labels were involved, and because of that, they dove in. That was their psychology of diving in. But it wasn't something that they really, what I would call spiritually, believe it to be a part of the label, even though it was. It's hard to think that if you're running a business, that if you're going to do something, you're not serious about it. And yes, they were serious about the dance music. But in their hearts, it wasn't like doing the classical or the jazz and really getting involved with all the detail. It was more of a secondary.
It was just a strict business decision, not a passion.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, and I can believe me, I can understand.
And they were older gentlemen.
They were older guys. Me, I'm biased because I love dance music. So for me, I'm like, oh my God, sacrilege. But I get it. It wasn't their thing. They fell into it because that's what was happening at the time. And look, let's face it, a lot of labels did the same thing.
Yeah. Joining the bandwagon.
Look at Scepter Records when Mel Sherin started there.
Yeah.
In his book, he mentions that Florence Greenberg, she resisted disco like the plague. She was like, I don't want to hear about this shit. Don't bring it up. If you bring it up, I'm going to fire you. And little by little, she realized, hey, we got to get into this.
You know, it's funny how time always seems to be the deciding factor on a lot of things in life. You know, over time, you see patterns, you analyze patterns, and now you're beginning to see a movement. But it takes time. Initially, the impact of disco, think about it. Even on the level of dance and disco and hip hop, when rap music came into the picture, well, there was a strong rejection from radio. I mean, this is not quote unquote music.
Sure.
Okay, but over time, and the impact of the sales and the radio stations that are especially in the urban areas, taking that risk to squeeze a track on radio, more of the rap tracks that have a little bit more of a melody that could be kind of squeezed into the format of R&B because it's got a melody and a piano line, things of that nature. Well, those tests, over time, you got more of that music hitting the airwaves, and now you've got it's all over the place. So sometimes what people reject, because of their background of studying and listening to music and what they think should be played on the radio based on what they're hearing. And when you hear something new, same thing with the Beatles. When the Beatles came in, they were left of center with their type of rock and roll, on the airwaves. So, and they were turned down. The Beatles were turned down by many labels. Okay, so
besides Decca.
Yeah. So there's a message that sometimes what we think is going to be the mainstream record, well, may not, and maybe so. It may be a mainstream record that we're thinking, may not turn out to be that. When you're looking for a hit artist, sometimes what the kids are, longing to hear or longing to experience is something totally different.
Right. So when you somehow met up with the Seymours,
yes,
is when they initially were getting interested in dance music, or had they already started to get into it?
Well, Vanguard already had opened its doors to dance music. I came in once the movement began at the label, and I met up with. Well, first of all, IDRC, the record pool that I belonged to at the time. Before that, I was with David Mancuso at the Loft and the 99 Prince Street record pool. That was my first record pool. But I left David Mancuso and went to Eddie Rivera. I forget what year, and it was my connection with Eddie Rivera and IDRC. And Eddie Rivera coming to my clubs to hear me perform, that eventually got me an interview with Vanguard Records. Vanguard was looking for someone that really understood this disco material, and they gave me the interview at Vanguard, and I met with Danny Weiss, who was doing A&R and was a big part of the label with the jazz division. And he interviewed me, asked me a few questions, and they felt good about what I was perceiving about disco.
So they brought you in as A&R at first, right?
First of all, as a consultant. Initially as a consultant on their disco mixes.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me in the studio. They wanted me to come in advance before going into the studio and give my opinion on songs, and and then actually go into the studio and consult and do the extended versions.
So
with an engineer.
You so how did you fall? You just fell into the whole mixing part? Did you have any mixing background? Do you have skills?
I personally, it's funny. People ask me, do I play an instrument? Do I do this? I can't play an instrument. My father played the guitar. My mother can sing. I cannot play an instrument, but I can go into a recording studio and project what I'm hearing in my mind to an engineer and have the engineer create that.
So that's what you were doing with those mixes.
That's correct.
What you were hearing, you're like, this should happen here. This should move that. Blah, blah, blah. Okay.
That's correct.
So
and then fine tuning that back and forth until we get the exact cake that we're looking for.
But so Vanguard brought you in the studio almost right away to start doing that stuff?
Just about,
Really?
because they had a set of projects that they were looking at, and they wanted my point of view on these projects. So I would come in and sit down and listen to a bunch of tracks, and then depending on my excitement on the ones that I liked, they would go with the flow and get me involved with those tracks that I particularly excited me. And
which was one of the first records they had you?
I think the Players Association, way back. Turn the Music Up. What's another one? We Got the Groove, and maybe one or two more Players Association tracks. They had an album, and I was involved with a few tracks on that album. But it was the Players Association.
Yeah, that was one of the first. And then you moved on to, I have a couple of things here. Let's see. I think this was a bit later.
Yep.
This would be 82, so we're skipping forward a little bit.
Yes.
This is Over Like a Fat Rat.
Okay, that was 82.
Executive producer Danny Weiss.
Yes.
Mixed by Ray Pinky Velazquez.
Yes.
Produced by Bob Blank. So this was done at Blank Studios. So this is one where normally Bob Blank was the one to do his own mixes in his studio, correct?
Right.
But for this one, they brought you in.
Yes. Because I was already part of the label. I was already having some success with my mixes being accepted by the DJs locally on the urban level, New York, the urban cities, and definitely across the country with the clubs. So with the acceptance of my mixes doing well on the club charts, Billboard, Cashbox, Record World, they had faith that I can now do a mix on Fonda Ray, and it would be in the ballpark.
So there was no ego clash with you and Mr. Blank. You just basically said here, because he has a production credit on this, which is, to me, I talked to Leroy Burgess about this. I said when did he produce anything? That he was never a producer, as far as I know.
Well, it's a good point. I'm not sure if Bob was. Bob may have had. Well, obviously he was involved in the record.
Yeah.
But to what extent? Sometimes when you look at these label credits, things are not perfect.
Right.
Okay, so there could be an air of, where Bob may have had his hands on maybe a part of the production. I never really knew. I never really Yeah.
It's interesting because and the mix is perfect on that. I mean, there's no. I mean, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
That Leroy told me that he was pushed out of the production credit on that. There was a technicality. I mean, I'm not asking you to quote to speak on that, but that was what he told me.
Right.
I don't know. I just found it odd that most of the time Bob was an engineer or a mix, but this is the first time I saw him as a producer. So I don't know.
It's good because when I was involved with the track, there was all types of talks regarding the back before I was involved in the record. Who touched this? Who did this on the record? Who did the some of the arrangements? And because I was never there, and I never wanted to, really second guess anyone or cause any bad feelings within the production of any of these records. Once I was involved, I let things, my job is to do the mix, make sure that the radio people are servicing the radio stations and doing their job, and that the club promotion people are doing their promotion with the clubs nationally, servicing 4,000 records and getting some feedback. I mean, that was basically... So I kept away from the... Now, if I'm involved in the production, I know.
That's a different story.
That's a different story. I'm there, and I know exactly what's going on and who did this, and even talk to the people involved. I always had a certain amount of respect for all of my artists because they're the ones that are singing on the record. They're expressing their point of view based on a rhythm track that's there. And I've always wanted to get a take on what an artist feels about the song they're singing and how they feel about the mix I did on their record, as far as what their personality is now becoming based on the new mix. Okay.
And the mix, obviously, it did well. I mean, that was a big record for the label.
I remember James. In those days, I was still DJing in the clubs. So Saturday and Sunday was always a big weekend for me working in the club. Well, that Saturday, after I had done the mix in '82 for Over Like a Fat Rat, and I had gone to bed. Well, I got home Saturday. I left the club, the Ipanema Discotheque, 240 West 52nd Street in '82 that summer. I went home and I was tired. I'm always tired when I got home because you put a lot of energy and time spinning records in a club. You put your heart onto that, focusing on that dance floor. Well, I went home, laid down, and the radio was on in my room, and it was BLS radio that was on. And as I'm laying my head down, Frankie Crocker was on the air playing something, and then all of a sudden, Over Like a Fat Rat is heard on the radio. And this was Sunday morning at about 5:30, 6 in the morning. And I got up. I was tired, but I got up. You know what I'm saying? Oh my God, it's on the radio. So that Monday morning, I'm contacting Vanguard, the staff, the radio promotion people, Ray Smith, Tom Gray, the disco promotion people, Heidi Spiegel, and I asked all of them, did you hear the record on the radio? And everyone's saying, no, we didn't even know it's been on the air. Frankie was playing it at 6 o'clock in the morning yesterday. So research found out that the radio personnel did some research. Frankie was testing the record, and the tests seemed to be favorable, so he was going to step it up to light rotation that week on BLS, and from light eventually it got to medium rotation and then heavy and power rotation, which means they're playing it so many times a day, and sales took off.
Do you know how many units they did on that? More or less?
I couldn't remember the exact. I never knew.
You never knew how many?
I never knew the
units.
exact numbers.
Hmm.
We
But
sold
it
quite
did,
a bit.
Okay.
We sold quite a bit.
And it was also, obviously, it was being played in the clubs at the time.
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
garage and whatever else.
I've always had a feeling about, thank God that I've always, I did some college radio DJ. I was a music director at my college station in City College, WCCR AM, and 660 AM. And, from that experience, I really got an insight on the difference between the club scene and the radio scene.
Yeah.
And there is a difference, and a lot of DJs don't understand why a record could be so hot in the clubs and not get any radio play. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And thank God that my ear for music goes back to the 60s, and in the 60s things were not so much dance. They were melodies, songs, like I mentioned before, and the spirit of listening, deeply affected me to the point that even when I played dance music, there has to be some kind of a melody on that track, and if there's lyrics, I'm looking for more of that on dance tracks. Today, the world of house, the world of dance has evolved to the point that DJs couldn't care less about melody and lyrics. It's about that bass line, the rhythm track. The more that's in tune, the more we're going in the right direction with the feel of the dance floor. That's and it's evolved to the point that I think musically things have become distorted because there's not too much melody. There's always an exception. Don't get me wrong, but for the most part, the new DJs that are coming in, they're more involved with the technology, the equipment, and getting those beats per minute locked up, and the melody lines, the lyrics is third nature. It's not important as long as you have a good bass line, a little bit of a tone of melody with a synth line. They are DJs. They are set. Okay, and it's not about And to me, it always comes down to the song and the melody first, and then that rhythm track, the bass line, the attitude.
Right.
Now I understand that if you're doing dance music, you have to have a good rhythm track. You have to have a guiding bass line. That's true, and that's always true. But I always look for that song to really round out the whole experience of what I'm doing, because if there's no song, what are you doing? No matter how great it is, it's not going to be long term.
Right.
It could be a long term project.
Well, that's probably why I don't go to a lot of venues these days. I'd rather hear a nice selection of music instead of 128 BPM the whole night, because there are
the early
parties.
days of the garage.
Right, it was everything.
The early days of the loft, David
Everything.
Mancuso.
Everything, yeah.
It was the song.
Yeah.
It's the spirit of the song and what it did to you inside. Bring out those feelings of freedom, of joy, of brotherhood. The song, when you listen to a song in the 60s, many times, even today, if I hear an old song that hits my center point inside, I'm right back in the 60s.
Right.
I'm right there again.
Uh-huh.
Penny Lane, the Beatles. I'm right there.
I guess that's what good music should do. Is it's supposed to transport you somehow,
right? And
somewhere, even whether it's back then or somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like and a lot of the house stuff. It's cool. Don't get me wrong, because I am a DJ and I understand what the house movement is all about. And
but a lot of it is mundane. I agree.
You can't spend the whole. I can't go to a club all night long.
One tempo.
And have one tempo,
one groove,
and big jams, and that driving attitude coming at me, and there's so much of the floor pounding my ears.
It's too much. It is for me too. It really is.
And now I can go to a place like you mentioned, 100 people.
Oh, they're playing all kinds of stuff.
They're playing all, and it's melodic, and there's a connection to spirit in the room.
That's why I like
well-being.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's songs,
you kind
melodies.
You're losing. Yeah, we lost that in the clubs over the years. And like I said, I keep saying it. That's why I don't go to a lot of big venues anymore, because I know it's going to be like that. That's for somebody who just wants to stay on the dance floor the whole night. Just wants that pounding bass drum all night, and that's it. More power to you.
It's incredible how it's evolved, the DJ mindset, and today you got all. Because of the fact that school is not providing that degree or that long-term job, and everybody's venturing into being a DJ today, and it's a global experience now. It's a global attack. Now you have more of these DJs pounding, getting more of that house attitude, more of the EDM, the electronic. It's all bass and drums, and
that's
they're all competing with each other for that piece of the pie. But not realizing that if they dive into a different type of a water and understand where all this came from,
right,
they would be better off going in that direction with their careers, trying to understand song and melody and tying it in to what's going, they're doing.
Sure. That I agree. That would be a good idea.
Yeah, but
and I might go to more parties if that were the case.
And you would be there.
I would probably enjoy it.
Yeah, especially us. We're getting older, and a lot of that pounding is.
I don't. See, I have. By the way, this is Carol Williams. Can't Get Away. I have my copy here. It's the regular, but also the bootleg
10-inch
of the 10-inch.
And you look at the label information; it's probably exactly the same.
Yeah, they copied it.
Yeah,
they copied it. But this doesn't sound that great.
Really?
No, because it's second generation. All right, so we got audio. Everything is good. So this record, this song, let's call it a song, produced and arranged by Daryl Payne. Now he came up in conversation with Joe Tucci because they worked together on stuff.
And we, the Legends of Vinyl, we're an organization, and we honor the pioneers, and we give out awards to pioneers every year. Well, Daryl Payne was at our New York City event on September 17th, and we gave him an award for his work in the business, and Carol and I presented the award to him.
Good.
It was very nice seeing the Vanguard chemistry on stage.
He reached out to me after he saw the Joe Tucci thing. So
is that right?
He's probably. I didn't tell him about it. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want anyone to know until it was out.
Good.
But he's coming up again. His name is coming up in 2 interviews already. Daryl Payne. So this song, William Braithwaite, Burt Braithwaite, he wrote it.
Right.
You mixed it.
That's correct.
Okay. So did you guys, obviously you never know, you can feel good about a project, but you never know how the public is going to respond.
There's never a guarantee. I mean, you go with an inspiration, you go with doing a little bit of homework involved, and then letting the universe give you that final feedback. It's all up in the air.
I mean, as Quincy Jones used to say in the studio, if you get goosebumps, it's a good sign.
Yes.
It's a good sign.
Yes.
And when you guys were working on this, did you have any, this is good, this is, what did you think?
I felt very, very positive, and I'll tell you why. Thank God that I respect all types of club audiences. And let me explain that, why it leads up to this. When you go to reggae clubs, when you go to clubs like CBGB's or the Mud Club to listen to progressive underground rock, when you go to gay clubs and listen to Euro disco, when you go to R&B clubs and get that feel of R&B, and you go to the garage and you get a bigger perspective on this R&B house feel, so to speak, and you work for a Brazilian Latin audience yourself, you have a cross feel of what's going on, in the club scene. Well, I also noted people want to know, why did we put this Carol Williams 10-inch? Well, why did we put it on a 10-inch record? It's not as good quality as a 12-inch.
Most people would say it was cheaper, but that's probably not the reason in this case.
Not the reason, we were willing to put it on 12. I've been a member of the Rock Pool in New York. They were located at 66 Delancey Street. And I used to get a lot of rock records. I used to play for this club on 85th Street where I played a lot of rock. So I played a lot of rock and roll records. Well, the underground rock movement coming from the UK and Germany, they and even regular rock and roll records, you see a lot of that vinyl pressed on 10-inch.
I noticed that.
Okay, so I always admired the size of the 10-inch record. Why? Most DJs carry 12 inches of vinyl. If you give them a 10-inch, first of all, it's going to stand out in their collection because they don't have as many 10 inches in their collections as they have 12 inches. So that's one thing to get them to play the record. It's in their face because of the size.
Right.
And and the whole psychology, really, and like I was explaining to the students yesterday at Ramapo College, we put out Can't Get Away. We felt good about the record initially. The record did take off. Sales were coming through. But like any good record, any good thing, at some point things start dying down. Well, at the point of the record started dying down with airplay here in New York, BLS, KISS, KTU Radio, and then the sales dying down, we got together at Vanguard, the whole staff, the radio promotion people, Ray Smith, Tom Gray, the club promotion people, Heidi Spiegel, the president, Maynard Solomon. We had a little brainstorm, and we came up with an idea to revive the sales of Can't Get Away. And that was do a special version just for the clubs. Now we know that it's not going to get much radio play because radio is not in the business of playing dubs for the most part.
Not really.
It's actually a reggae concept.
Yeah.
But we want to revive the club play. So what the DJs were going to do, and actually what they did, when they played the 10-inch, they mixed it with the 12-inch.
Yeah.
And now we have a new version.
A new 12-minute.
And people want this quote-unquote new version, but the 10-inch is not in the store. So what happened was people are going to the store buying the 12-inch again. Or those that didn't have it are buying the 12-inch thinking that they were getting this new version.
But then when they heard it, they're like, oh, it's not that version.
It's not.
But they still were still happy that they have the record anyway. So.
And psychologically,
it satisfied them.
It satisfied them, and at the same time, radio was monitoring the sales.
Yeah.
Going up and started playing the record more. So it worked out to.
That's like one of the first times I've heard of this strategy being used.
Yes, and it was a perfect strategy. And
So the record was a hit. I mean, you don't know how many units you moved
Oh,
on.
we don't know.
50,000 or?
It could have been. It could have been. Can't Get Away did maybe 70,000.
So then
Fonda may have done 80.
Okay, so more or less the same amount.
Right.
And then you put this 10-inch out just for the DJ pools or word of mouth, and you only did a couple of thousand. You said maybe
about 3,000. Normally the record pools carried 4,000 members nationwide.
And
the main pools,
and as you said, not every DJ got a copy.
Not every DJ got a copy.
But they probably were like, "Oh, I want a copy of that." They're fighting over this. Where do I find this record?
Well, that's always part of the DJ wars. Yes. So that it did happen because there were a lot of DJs calling
trying to get it
from the West Coast, wanting to know why their pool didn't get the copy.
And did you service them at that point? You couldn't.
We decided to press so many, and that was going to be it.
A special thing.
We were not going to go back and press more. There was a little game plan just to get the sales going again.
And you did. It did what it was supposed to do, and you moved on, and that was that.
Exactly.
Well, that's a great little story, and
yes.
I don't even have a copy of this, but before you leave, if you would let me make a quick digital copy of that,
absolutely.
I would be very, very grateful.
Absolutely, not a problem.
But you brought some records here.
Let me give you.
And I would like to see what's what there.
Take a look at this label for a second. It's a Vanguard release, and I want to give you a little story.
I don't have this.
Okay.
Spectrum City. I may have heard it. Not because you see what's going to happen. I have to go now buy all these records now.
Right.
All right. Producer Ray Velazquez.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Does that also mean you mixed it, or was it Bob Blank did?
No, it was. I
did
did the whole thing. I created the record, and then I did the actual mix. So instead of me saying produce and mix, I just put produce, but I did the whole thing.
Okay, so I haven't heard this, but how did this come about?
If you want to take a picture of that, that's fine. That way you can look it up.
My phone is being used for video, but I'll remember this.
Okay. Or if not, I'll take a picture and send it to you. That's fine.
But so this was, I'm seeing all the 4 songwriters on here. I'm not familiar with. So is this on the R&B boogie tip, or is it electro?
This is our first hip hop rap release on Vanguard.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you talk? You were A&R, so you talked them into doing that.
Right. Exactly.
Because they probably weren't keen on it.
It was tough because
they were
classical jazz label is looking at rap and saying, "Wait a minute, this is not. This is a little bit of culture shock here."
But wasn't it easy to point out? Look, Tommy Boy Records, Profile Records, all these labels having big hits off this stuff.
Well, it's a good point. It's a good point. See, when you're in tune, like for example, you're in tune, you're aware of what was going on. The Solomons,
they were not.
Maynard Solomon spent most of his days at Vanguard Records behind closed doors writing about the life history of Beethoven. Okay? And when you interrupted him, that was his mindset.
Seriously.
Yeah, it was not about.
Well, let me ask you. He's putting this stuff out. Are you telling me he never played the final product? Like he never.
I'm pretty sure. As a professional, just being professional, he would.
But not. It just once, and that's.
It was not here.
It was not in the heart.
It was, So when you talk to him about rap on this label or Profile Records doing that, he would say, "Okay, I know of Profile Records. They're a small indie label, and they do." They have some dance stuff out there. That was his, when he started separating hip hop and rap and disco, and to him it's all dance music, and
it wasn't like, okay, I see what you're saying.
It didn't sink in. He wasn't studying the movements of what was going on.
He wasn't
a general picture that disco was happening and there's a little money to be made. Get in there, get some people that know something about it, and let's do some disco. Whereas and he would consider that disco.
Yes, and he's not the only one, because I've met a lot of people over the years.
Yes.
So that's a contrast to labels like Prelude, West End, where these labels popped themselves up to make dance records.
Sure.
From day one.
Right, and from the business standpoint, why not? There's
Right.
money to be made.
Well,
why not?
Like I said, Mel Sharon was the guy to push disco on Scepter, and then
and so many tiny labels that popped up, and
little
labels that disco just invited the whole world to participate, and it became whatever it was.
The smart ones said let's get into this, because look at Morris Levy, Roulette Records, right? And then he started Beckett, and a couple other little offshoots. So they had their hands in dance music. All these guys, big time. But that's interesting.
Now this record, James, if you mind, let me give you a little insight. Lies, Spectrum City. Well, Spectrum City is a rap group, and I met them. I met the four. There was Hank Shockley, there was Butch, there was Flava Flav at that time coming in. These guys were living in Hempstead, Long Island. A guy by the name of Timothy Olfey, an American guy, came to Vanguard and trying to get a record deal with Spectrum City. I listened to the material. I thought they had good vocal qualities for doing rap. I didn't think that the music was good enough to sell. And keep in mind, we're just diving into this rap arena ourselves.
Right.
So I proposed to land a deal with them if they can let me reproduce one of the songs they had on the demo. And that was Lies. And check out the radio on the backside. So they agreed. They wanted a deal. I went into the studio, creatively put some James Brown effects on the record, and created the rhythm track. Took out a lot of the music that was originally there. It became too melodic, too jazzy, too hitting away from the hip hop target audience with the feel of too much jazz. So I wiped out a lot of it and basically produced it where I took out most of the stuff to make it work and left it bare bones.
So
okay.
Drum machine, and a keyboard.
And some James Brown hits, and changed the.
What do you mean by James Brown hits?
Well, we sampled the James Brown piano line from one of his songs.
You sampled it, you replayed it, you redid it.
No, we sampled it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We replayed it.
But
we copied the sample and then we replayed it. Yes.
But you didn't have to credit anyone. Okay.
Right.
You got, because in those days the whole sampling, interpolation, the term wasn't around back then.
That's correct.
It was kind of, people were doing it, but not really. Yeah, it was
right. It was not.
See no evil, hear no. Yeah.
Now it's.
But you see what Joe told me. He was recreating Tom Tom Club and all these things.
Right.
But they credited them somehow. They got away with it. But
right.
But anyway, so
we did this record. We released it on Vanguard, and the sales were. They were not killer sales. So I wanted to do another record with them. And we, at the time of that record dying out, we had signed another hip hop record, another Planet Rock type of
thing, yeah.
Soul Sonic Force type of a thing that I was involved in that production, and that one took off big time.
You talking about Twilight?
Found the Rave, Twilight 22.
I have that over here.
Yes, that record came out when this one started dying, and because we had so much attention to Twilight 22 that we were doing another single, and that one took off too. The second single, Siberian Nights.
So Electric Kingdom was the first. Siberian Nights.
Exactly, and then we did an album.
The album has a lot of interesting stuff on there.
Right now, that producer, Gordon Bahari, is a student, a protege of Stevie Wonder.
Yes, I know.
Okay, and that's how I met him, and that's how we connected, because he had a great feel for melody.
Yes, but this is West Coast. He was West Coast based, no?
He lived in Huntington, New York.
So I thought that was a West Coast group, Twilight 20.
Well, the members of the group themselves, and they were just basically studio. It was a studio group. It was touring. They were from the West Coast, but
he was from.
But the whole concept, the whole production was done here.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
Yes.
So,
so getting back to this, well, because Twilight 22 took off in such a powerful, 2 singles, an album, we got so busy with them that we decided to let them go. And what did they do? They walked over to Columbia Records and changed the name to Public Enemy.
Oh my God, that's these guys?
That's correct.
Hank Boxley is Shockley, the Shockleys. Okay,
Public Enemy, and became the next.
Carlton, is that Flav?
Yes.
Is that him? Holy shit.
Okay, that's them.
Wow.
Okay, and had we not succeeded with Twilight 22, we would have had a second single with them, and that may have changed.
So they just jumped. So wow, that's interesting. Public Enemy, Spectrum City.
Now, what's funny about that single lies back with Check Out the Radio.
It became over. People wanted it because it's Public Enemy.
Absolutely. But it was that the B side of the record was used on the soundtrack South Central. What's the big name producer on that album, on the movie South Central? Oliver Stone.
Oh.
The Oliver Stone movie, South Central. Well, that B-side was featured on the movie.
Check Out the Radio?
Yes.
And so, who owns Vanguard now, the catalog?
It's still a Vanguard catalog on the West Coast.
That's a big conglomerate took it over?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who bought the whole catalog.
It wasn't Unidisc, I know that.
No.
So they had to get permission from them
Right.
to use the song.
Right.
Interesting.
But, it's funny how we got one, and I wanted to do a record because I thought there was something there about this group.
I have to hear that because it's probably it's their vocals, but the music is totally not.
It's not
what they're known for. Yeah, right.
Political.
Right. Wow, that's a story. That's very interesting.
But that was a project. So
the Twilight 22
and I mentioned that to the students yesterday at the college. They were amazed.
Well, as I am, because I didn't know that. That's interesting. I probably would have figured it out, but to this day, no.
Yeah.
So the Twilight 22 thing, you had a couple of singles and you had the album. Did the album sell too, or?
The album sold because of the first 2 singles. We didn't get the huge sales that the singles were doing, and when I talked to Gordon Bahari, the producer, about the album, I wanted more of that Twilight 22. I mean, of that Planet Rock rhythm track.
He didn't though,
and he wanted to express
his R&B,
his musical.
Yeah, because the rest of the tracks. It's got some Stevie Wonder-ish things going on there.
Yes,
which I think I like it. I mean, whether it was a hit or not. And then he has some other off-kilter things on there,
right,
which are interesting. But
and it does show talent.
He's talented. I can hear it.
And I think that he was so focused on that and not realizing that we had a pulse with that hip hop audience that we should have just
nurtured that a little bit.
More on the album, maybe 2 more songs like that, and whatever you want to do is fine after that. And he wanted to show more of. I think throughout the whole process, Gordon wanted to show his talents from day one.
Right.
And the only way he was going to get a deal was doing something like this. So
was he was the keyboard player, and
exactly.
Did he also have vocals on there, or is it the other guys?
No,
okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's a shame that it was a 1 album project because I could see that could go
Sure.
But
Yeah.
that's the industry for you.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to realize when things are going good, why you have to ask yourself why. Why are things happening? Why is there so much attention? Why is there so much sales going on? And you have to respect the young record buyer and what excites him or her to take money out of their pocket and do that and buy it. And the more you understand that mindset, the better you are at producing your records, because you are in tune with the spirit of the buyer. And unfortunately for so many people in the business, they want to show that they matter, that they have knowledge. And that is actually, like they say the term, you could be an educated derelict. You can have so much information stored in your memory bank. You may know so much that you can't relate to people, because of your knowledge. You're so out there with your knowledge. And you have to remember, you have to come back, if you're in business, and connect to those people that you're alienating yourself because you have so much knowledge. You have to come back and target again.
Right.
Regroup and focus on that if you're going to make it. I mean, it's tough.
It's tough.
Especially as you get older.
Yep.
As you get older, you feel that your frustrations are leading you to get more knowledge.
True.
But when you're back in the business, you have to, again, come back and become that quote-unquote ignorant person that you were, and focus on that. And thank God that you do have some knowledge, because now you can focus even a little bit better if you're serious.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this bit.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yeah.
But, a lot of musicians, because it's such a tough business, that when things don't go right, when things are not happening, and everyone's giving you their point of view on why, everyone's giving you their expert point of view, and you're saying to yourself, well, I've been through this before, I'm going to do what I think is right, I'm just going to become a little bit more musical and show my talents. Maybe that's the angle to make it all work.
I guess you don't know until you try
it's
it.
Tough.
And then it is tough. We're going to get to how things maybe it got tough for you later, but
Sure.
but before we get to that, show me some more some more goodies here.
Vinyl, 12 inches.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, here's
okay. Look at
okay.
that. Epic. What's this?
Eddie Grant's "Walking on Sunshine."
Yes, I have. You had something to do with this?
I did. Well, like Carol Williams, when Carol Williams was her first, that "Can't Get Away" was dying out in singles.
Yeah.
Eddie Grant's record was dying out, and I was called in to revive it by doing an edit of the instrumental with the vocal on one version.
Is that this?
And that's that one. Now, there is the initial 12-inch, which is 5 minutes and 20 seconds long. My version is 6 minutes and 12 seconds long.
The original was on Ice. It was his Ice label, right?
Right.
This is the American press. Wow, I have this, but I didn't realize it was longer.
Yeah.
So you took part of the instrumental and chopped it in there.
Right. And here's one of the promotions. Here I have that of the same record at the time when they released that. Okay.
612.
Yeah.
Now my next question is,
yes,
what happened at Epic that they forgot to put your name on here?
because of the time frame, and that's a very good question. I get asked that question a lot. Because of the time frame involved
This is
and
awesome.
the rush to get it out there before the record sales were dying, they wanted to get it out quickly. They proceeded and they forgot to put my name on there, or I don't know if it was, I can't say exactly forgot, or I don't think there was a deliberate intent to not put my name in there, but it was a rush job to get the label done, and they apologized, but they promised to do all of the promotion with my name.
Which is what they did. Well, you were a little bit annoyed when you saw that.
Well, yes, because you're younger and you're trying to build your career, and it's Eddie Grant too. But I learned how to cope with that. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay today. Today I'm fine.
That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because the name's not on there, but now I know.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but it's true. So, what else
Look at
we
all
got?
this stuff.
Okay. Here's 2 records on the Flip label. Lex, the artist, and Endgames.
One of those, I'm familiar with, I think this one. This one has like a off-kilter kind of vocal. Is that the one I'm thinking? Kind of unorthodox vocal?
Well, depending on how you're looking at things, a lot of these British bands, to a lot of people have unorthodox vocals, but
that's what I meant. Not so in line with the R&B.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Both of them.
Yeah, both of them.
Because these are like dance-oriented rock records. They're not R&B records. They're not disco records. It's DOR. And there was a big station here in Long Island called WLIR Radio, progressive dance rock. Well, they played these records. Lex, believe it or not, she still lives here on 73rd Street off
Really?
Broadway. And I did that record. I produced that record for her. And the original was a record that came from Germany by a band called Felfarben. And the German translation of 14 Days was 14 Tage. Tage. And I just reproduced that record. We changed the lyrics to English, did an extended version, got it out. It was Screamer of the Week on WLIR radio. Got a lot of attention. And we never did a follow-up with Lex. We didn't have a record for her. We were so busy at Vanguard, we never did a follow-up with her. And she was a regular performer at my club at Cartoon Alley here on West 84th Street that I mentioned to you. And so was Madonna, a regular monthly performer at Cartoon Alley. She performed under the name of Madonna and the Madonna Street Band. Now, one thing I noticed about Madonna at Cartoon Alley, whenever she performed, she always had a little intermission going on, and in the intermission, she would talk to the audience, and 9 times out of 10, she was bitching with the audience, and many times she would tell guys from her podium on the stage, I mean, she really had an attitude.
Why was she so
upset? People were drinking and people were shouting things, and she was always a little bit of a fiery type of woman on stage, Yeah. I always caught that, but I loved her little bubblegum voice when she sang, So.
And she claims that everybody thought she was black because the first single didn't have her picture on it,
right.
and then.
Well, it's funny how the business is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Apparently, either she or the label didn't want to put her picture. Maybe the label, Sire, didn't want to put her picture on the first single to everybody because they were pushing it on the urban. Yeah. The urban
and my
station.
friend produced that record, Mark Kamens.
Yes.
Good friend of mine. Good friend.
Passed away a few years back.
I miss him. Nice guy.
So I've heard.
Yeah, he had me perform as a guest DJ at the Danceteria, and it was nice. Very nice.
And here another Mark Berry.
Mark Berry
was on a lot of these Vanguard's records as engineer.
He was my engineer. Yes.
So he was your guy through most of these.
And he was at the events at September 17th. Over there. It was great to have all these Vanguard people there. Really.
Really. And so, why did Vanguard come up with a little sub label, Flip imprint like this?
Again,
style wise,
wanting to get involved, not like the other major labels that are venturing into dance rock. We just did it as following the bandwagon, and we had a division for DOR, and John Hammond was the one that was doing the club promotion and radio promotion for the Flip label.
And the Flip label, it was relatively short-lived?
Short-lived, 2 singles. We had licensed another single from the UK, from Chrysalis Records in the UK, called In Memory of Your Name by a group called Private Lives. Okay? And we were going to remix that and put it out. We already licensed it. We paid for it. Never got around to doing it.
Really?
Yeah. It's on the shelf.
Too busy.
Yeah.
And this one, Endgame...
But the record itself may be available as an import.
Oh, because they pressed it.
Right. Exactly.
And Endgame...
And it was produced by Tony Visconti. Big name
That
producer.
name I know.
Yes.
I know that name, Tony
Yes.
Visconti. And I also know this name, Steve Levine.
Steve Levine, Endgames. I mean, Culture Club.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, so
he produced that one.
So tell me about this one. First, last for everything.
Endgames, at the time that we released Endgames here in the States, I was studying a lot of this dance rock coming out of the UK and Germany, going to a lot of the clubs like I mentioned, CBGB and the Mud Club and the Reggae Lounge on Houston Street, getting a nice underground tone of the dance rock movement. And I realized a lot of the dance rock clubs played even a lot of Motown, a lot of Temptations, a lot of, just more early Michael Jackson. And I really got the feel of what all that, how the dance floor was absorbing a lot of this stuff. Well, I was also studying a lot of the releases that were coming out of the UK, out of Germany. And the Human League was a big record here, Don't You Want Me Baby. Mm-hmm. And they had some other singles that were pretty interesting too, like Fascination and Goodbye, Bad Times. That was produced by Philip Oakey. And, the Human League had a nice sound. And I loved their vocals. And what happened was, when Endgames became available as an import, I loved the sound of the record, the synth lines, the bass lines, the attitude, the singers' vocals, and we went after that to license it here. We picked it up, and then there was a problem with our release here, or an indirect problem, and that was MCA Records also signed them to a label deal here while we were leasing their old First Last for Everything, and MCA was recording and had given them a record deal to do completely brand new material and did not want their older material. So when we released First Last for Everything, it became a clash with MCA's initial release of Endgames with their new material. That first release was called oh my god,
but it was on MCA.
It was on MCA, and I used to play it a lot as a DJ myself. It was a good record.
And they only put out one album for them, probably?
One album.
MCA. And so someone at MCA called up Vanguard?
Well, they were upset because, if you look at the label, look at that orange tag that we had on the label, that yellow tag on the...
Yeah.
It says the debut, we're debuting them, and actually MCA was introducing their brand new album at the same time that we introduced. So there was a, which is the real Endgames?
Right.
That talk. Why is Endgames on 2 labels for their first release?
So, but legally they couldn't do anything, right?
They couldn't do it. We licensed it. I mean, had we known, had both labels communicated maybe a little bit better with each other, we could have worked something out where we're not releasing things at the same time.
Right.
But it became what it was,
and so this got some play, and this did okay.
There was a lot of club play, especially with the instrumental and DiscoNet.
They did
the special version.
Those DiscoNets.
Remember that?
Yes. Sugar Scoop.
Yes.
They were basically just re-edits, right? They chopped it up.
Yeah, they would do a lot of edits.
That was one of the first edit labels, I guess. But
that's a great shot of the same building where you live.
Well, that's down this block. It's the same side of the street, but that's further down towards Columbus. That picture was taken by a man. Yeah, it is. My mother.
I love it.
My mother technically owns that, but I wouldn't give it to her. I actually made a smaller version, and I sent it to her in Florida. I said, "No, I'm keeping the original."
Very nice.
The man that took that picture long passed away, but he lived in one of these buildings right here, and he had a parrot, a loud parrot that would wake me up on Saturday morning. It was so loud. But he was a photographer that took a lot of the pictures for the neighborhood, and some of the restaurants had his pictures at the time.
There's a restaurant down on the west side, on like around West 4th or 5th Street on Avenue of Americas, called the Waverly Restaurant.
Yeah.
And I've seen nice winter pictures of that restaurant that I really like a lot.
I mean, who knows? I mean, he had his stuff all over the place, but
nice.
He was very good photographer.
I like winter scenes. I always like winter scenes.
Me too, and we haven't had winters quite like that for a long time. That was the 1978 or 9.
Back in the 60s, we used to get bombarded with snow.
Right, and there was like 3 or 4 feet of snow that year, and then the next one that we had was 82. We had 3 or 4 feet of snow, and since that year, I don't think we've never had 4 feet of snow. I was actually walking; it was covering half my body. That's and never again. And I remember walking from here through the park, through the Crossway, to get to the Upper East Side to buy a La Tigre shirt. I wanted to buy a shirt that day.
Right.
I had the money. I said, I want to buy this shirt. And it took me 2 hours to walk through the snow to get there. It was that's what you do when you're a kid. But anyway, it's good to know about these records. I have to add these to my collection.
Yes.
What else you got over there?
Let me show you. This is one record that I did on the...
Now that label, I have...
Dynamo Records.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's the one. I don't know. Let me see.
Let me give you some insight on that. And it's all related to this. That's why I put both of them together.
1977.
Yeah.
Kids Dance. Which is the A side?
Childhood. Childhood Forever. Now...
At least they put your name on there.
That's yes, thank God.
Yes.
So what happened was that record, that label, Dynamo Records, was getting involved with the disco bandwagon, and they released a record called Disco Dracula.
I think I know what that is.
Yeah. So it's kind of a funny, corny type of a record.
Novelty.
But the owner of the label, and I forget his name. I mean, he was old then. He was probably 85 years old when I met him back in '77. He wanted to know more about that, so I even took him one day to the garage so he can get to understand.
Right.
Urban. And I think it gave him a culture shock that he never forgot. He told me, you know something? That scene at the garage is sick. I mean, this is a preppy...
Sick? Was he responding to...
Well, his image, I mean, when he puts out a record and thinks it's going to go big by the name of Disco Dracula, I mean, that's where his mind,
he didn't know that.
Disco was supposed to be very polished, very middle America, very preppy. The way the images on TV were and when I took him to the garage to give him an insight, he said, "Wait a minute, this is not what I think I want to get involved with."
But
so to speak.
But then he realized that these people that were going to this club and other clubs, they fed off good music.
Absolutely.
It wasn't like crap.
Absolutely.
It was good vibes. Good vibes.
And I think you learn today. You realize that you have to give people the truth,
Yeah.
regardless of what they're perceiving. If you're not giving them the truth, it's all misleading, and it's going to affect you anyway. You have to provide. You have to have people dig deep within themselves to understand that truth and come up with a formula that's going to work for them based on analyzing truth.
Right.
You have to. The truth is where it begins. So getting back to this record, there was a record that I was playing at the Ipanema discotheque, and this was the record, and it's French, and it's the same record that you're looking at the 12-inch, but it's a French record. I was playing 2 copies of that back to back in the Ipanema, driving my audience wild with the 2 copies. So I walked into this Dynamo label, talked to the company. We had a few series of talks. They wanted me as a consultant to help them with this disco that they were putting out, because Disco Dracula didn't do well at all. And I took them down to the garage. I had more meetings with them, and they trusted me to go back into the studio. And we picked up this record from Canada. We translated it into English. I did an extended version, and the new 12-inch, we put it out in '77, and it was nominated in Billboard magazine for Disco Mix of the Year. Okay?
Wow.
Now, I didn't win the nomination. Walter Gibbons won the nomination with the mix he did on Love Committee, Law and Order that year.
Yes.
But I was nominated.
That's good. And so this
like,
record, record got noticed. It got played.
Absolutely.
It was,
all over. It was top 5 dance in Billboard that year. So.
And how many did they do on this? Do you know?
Oh, we sold maybe 40,000-50,000.
So this label, the guy that owned the label was like, okay, we're onto something here. So
yes,
let's,
then I was bringing in more things. There was an import called The Chase by MBT Soul. M period B period T period. I forget what that stands for. But it was MBT Soul on Polydor Records in France. And it was at that time, a lot of the records coming out of France were long.
Right.
One whole side of 15 minutes. A lot of that was coming out of France. And I thought, Santa Esmeralda, remember that record?
Sure.
Don't Let Me Be. That was an import. It was long like that too. Well, I wanted to pick up that record, but France wanted so much money that the company was realizing that, this stuff gets serious. If you really want to get involved with the disco scene, make money, you got to spend some money at times, and
their fee, it was too much.
It was too much.
So the alternative would be just develop your own
things, and the company, I would say, was never really serious to get involved.
Right.
From the beginning, and I had that one record with them, and I helped them out. I put them on the label. I put them, I gave them visibility with the label.
But he wasn't going to pursue it any more than that?
No.
And then this label
kind of folded.
It folded.
A year, maybe a couple of years, maybe a year later.
Huh. Okay.
So,
well, that's...
Yeah.
I might have that, actually, somewhere.
Okay, now, you already know about Twilight 22.
Absolutely.
I brought that here. This record, Rainbow Brown, Till You Surrender. And it's 2 copies there. The initial release, and then the remix that I did after.
After the fact. Oh, I see, yes.
Yes, okay.
Well, the original, and it's somewhat short. Under 5 minutes.
Right. And when you Google that record, you'll see some write-ups on the remix. Now, what happened was, again, the initial release was not selling well at all. And my take on why the record was not selling, me understanding a little bit of what radio's looking for, it had the radio elements, but the club elements, the intro, the break, was missing, was not really there spiritually the way the club DJ likes to feel a
Right.
break. Okay. Now you can talk about a break and say, well, the record has a break. Isn't that what the DJs want? Yes, but there's breaks that have more of an impact. Longer. Less music in the breaks.
More percussion.
Okay, more
right.
percussion. That gets the club scene a little bit more excited.
And when you look at this, the timings on these are only about a minute apart. But I guess in that minute, you made your point.
Right.
You made the point that the record needed
Exactly.
to have.
So the vocals didn't come in on my remix for about the first minute and a half, so to speak.
So there you go. You
And
nice
I gave
intro.
an instrumental and build it up, and by the time we got to the second verse, musically, it became the first verse vocally. Okay.
Right.
So,
I see what you did. You took the vocals out of the verse and you just
and gave it an instrumental feel. Because,
excellent.
And
And
the sales picked up. The sales just picked up immediately based on that. Now the lead singer is
Fonda
Fonda
Ray.
Ray, okay?
And I see Patrick Adams wrote him.
Yeah, Patrick Adams.
Yeah, and he did
Yeah.
truckload of stuff.
Well, sure, Patrick Adams and Leroy Burgess. They did,
Oh yeah,
they did a lot of stuff for Prelude Records too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So this came out. Yeah, music.
Yeah.
This came out a little sluggish, and then the remix and it changed everything.
Absolutely. So
Wow.
I mean, these are things that you're here and you're getting some insight, and it's wonderful because it's history. It is history of at least my history.
No, this is important.
Yeah.
Important history.
And it's great when you talk to people and they send you emails from the UK or other parts of the world, and they remember some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you get feedback like that from the other part of the world on an email. So that's a fun part of.
Well, sometimes as you might know, that Europeans and Japanese and they're sometimes they're way more into the stuff than the average American was or is. You can see a lot of the love comes from elsewhere.
That's very true.
Even now.
It's funny when you're creating this music, you don't think of it that way.
Right.
You don't think that people in some parts of the world look at this stuff, and it's like they're so connected to it. They actually love this stuff, and you're doing it and you're loving your work, but you're not like, it's not part of your religion every day to listen to this stuff once you finish it.
Right.
But people out there that are going to clubs and hearing it a lot in the clubs or abroad, it's big stuff for them.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
No, it's true.
So
sometimes the people that made the records are not the ones closest to it. In fact, most of the time it's like that. In fact, Joe told me he doesn't even own copies of a lot of those records. But at least you have the record still.
Yes,
which says a lot.
I try to keep the collection. Thank God, people have wanted to buy my collection, and I keep my records. And now vinyl's making a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah.
And now I have friends that tell me, I should have never sold my records.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
And time, if you just hold on to things, and again, everyone has a different story. Obviously, if you're in a financial bind and you gotta sell your records, you're gonna do what you're gonna do.
True.
If you could hold on to them, there's some value there.
Yes, especially
Yes.
certain ones.
Yes.
So, you with your tenure at Vanguard, we're going back and forth on the timeline, or have we reached the point where you said by 1985
I would say 84, 85. That would have been the last.
things were starting.
Yeah, I would say 84. I would say about 84. before.
Did you, when you left the label, did you continue DJing, or did you pursue?
I continued DJing till about June of '85. Okay, then I left the business
entirely,
and now I'm back working with the Legends of Vinyl. I'm the vice president, and what we do, you know, like I mentioned before, the Legends of Vinyl, we started that in 2010, and it's now beginning to catch fire all across the country. And what we do, we honor the pioneers that have contributed to dance music, songwriters, producers, DJs, directly, indirectly tied into the music business. What we do every year, we have events all across the country: Philadelphia, New York. We have something planned for San Francisco next year. Again, New York, and even Mexico, the country, has asked us to come down to do an event.
Oh.
And we're actually communicating with the president there. And what we do, our platform is we have a board of directors at the Legends of Vinyl. We have 10, 11 board of directors, and what we do, we nominate. Everyone nominates 5, 6, 7 people that they would like to see get an award. Now, depending on the city, we try to get people nominated that are living in that city. I mean, we don't want people from San Francisco flying to Philadelphia for an event if they don't have to. Try to get people nominated that are within that city that we're going to be hosting that event. So we vote. We nominate 5 names, 6, 7 names. Every one of the board of directors nominates, and then we choose. We choose which ones are that we like best of the names that we nominated, and those are the ones that are going to get the awards. So at each event we give out 15, 20, 23 awards. And what we do at the event, we give a little bio introduction before we call up that person to the stage, letting everybody know what they've done in the business, what records they're associated with, and name the hit records that they're involved with. Bring up that person, give them an award, a plaque, something like this, but it's just a Legends of Vinyl certificate with their name, and thanking them for what they've contributed in the business. Well, we give them out stage, we take pictures, and it's off. We always have media attention there, filming and taking pictures for their publications. And then after that, we have a dinner, a party at the end of the night, where we have one popular DJ. At our September 17th event, we had Tony Smith perform and Nicky Siano, from the gallery, and we had a big award for Nicky Siano. We gave him at our September 17th at Club Amadeus in Queens. That was where we had the event. We gave him the Icon of the Year award, Nicky Siano, and we gave one to Jelly Bean last year. Okay, so Jelly Bean was present this year, watching Nicky Siano get his award this year, and we always have an Icon of the Year award at our New York City event every year. So we'll pick out another icon next year.
I guess that was
those are my texts or emails coming in.
So that's a good thing you're doing there.
And it's catching fire, and people like it, and people can't wait to come to our events. So that's basically what I'm doing now.
And so you said started this in 2010.
2010.
So what attracted you back into the world of music?
When you think about it, and I think you would agree, James, music is the fountain of youth. When you think about it, you become little kid again when you get involved making music, talking music. You know, you're back into your youthful days, and it keeps. And I think it's something good for the soul, and it's good for the body chemistry. And I think you live a little bit longer because you feel good about music.
Well,
you know, you talk about, you look at all this vinyl, you have all these memories of clubs and people, and you feel alive.
If that's the case, I should live to 300. Because I'm, surrounded by it.
I hope so.
And I hope so for you as well.
But you understand?
Sure,
how
I do.
That
I understand. I get it.
What would your world be without doing any music?
Man, I don't know.
Okay, what would you be doing? What would your, not that you're not talented enough to do something. But would you be that electrified doing what you're doing? That up?
No, I would. I don't.
See what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, everyone needs a passion.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is our passion. For some people, it's pottery. For some people, it's cooking. For some people, it's traveling. And then whatever else you can dream up. But for us, it's this.
Yeah.
So
we have a history. We've got 30, 40 years of history.
Yeah.
And you can talk about it when you meet people that come from way back in the day. There's a chemistry that's electrifying, and it's great, And to me, it's like I mentioned, the fountain of youth. It's
right.
You feel rejuvenated when you're around all
Absolutely.
this stuff. Because you have knowledge about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people. You present this stuff to a car salesman. Doesn't mean anything. I don't know what you're talking about. But when you communicate with people that are from that era and from the club scene and involved in these productions and writing these songs, it's you get more insight on the knowledge you already have, and you feel even more rejuvenated. You feel like you have an edge.
Yes.
On things because of that insight. Now, is that going to make you a millionaire? I think it gets to the point that at least you're alive and you have a hobby, and that's okay for your health. I think.
I think it's positive. I mean, I feel bad for people that have no passions at all.
Well, see,
I don't meet too many of them. Usually people have something that drives them, but when you meet someone that has nothing that drives them, it's almost
that's pretty sad.
Oof, yeah.
That's pretty sad.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be there.
And you wouldn't have that passion unless you dug into the trenches and did some homework because you were curious. You wanted to know more.
Yeah.
About, and that's how life works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you continued fortune in this project and whatever else.
Thank you.
Comes
James.
your way.
Thanks, James.
And I want to thank you so much for taking your time out to talk to me. And I appreciate
it's funny how an email turns out, and that's how the world should be. Where people can communicate and with no sense of negative, just going out in free spirit, give back to the industry that gave you so much. You learn. For me, it's gratitude. I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to do studio work, to meet, to help an artist shape their career. It's touching. It's a touching. So I'm grateful, and giving you this information so that you can.
Not just me and whoever's watching. I'll make sure that Jay Negron.
Jay.
He's gonna share this. I'm sure he's gonna love it.
Jay's a good guy. I've known him for years. I remember when he was working at the Tropicalia cab club in Manhattan, and I went to visit him, and I remember one record he was playing. It was the Atlantic 7-inch with the little hole. Wing and a Prayer. No, not Wing and a Prayer. Yeah, Wing and a Prayer. Ease on down the road. Okay, by Wing and a Prayer. The promo Atlantic unreleased 7-inch, and he was playing that. And I remember being on the dance floor waving to him and wanting to know what that record was. And
He showed you it.
I remember that was
Shout out
years
to
ago,
Jay.
back in the 70s.
I know, yeah, he was from New York and now he resides in Florida, as you
Yeah.
know. But he's active on the crib radio and all
Yes.
that stuff.
Yes.
And so, yeah, this is going to be a treat for that group as well. Yeah. Well,
Is there anything regarding the Ipanema or anything else? I mean,
I
don't know if I said too much or not enough.
no. This is great.
Okay.
I mean, if there's anything else you want to share.
No. I mean, I think I think we covered
the
a
important.
good little chunk.
Okay, we could leave maybe a part 2 down the line. Who knows? But I think we did good. I think we did good.
Good.
And once again, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's the least of
well, you know, there is one more thing.
Sure.
And it's we got to get one of my copies signed by Ray Pinky Velazquez. We didn't talk about the Pinky nickname.
Oh yes, and you brought that up from the beginning.
I'm sorry, but you know.
I'll give you a quick story if you can
sure.
remember. Very simple. The tallest guy in my 3rd grade. I went to Catholic grades elementary school. The tallest Holy Rosary school in Manhattan on 124th Street. The tallest guy in the class, Eric Arzola, starts making fun of me in the class because I was the shortest guy in the class. He starts calling me Pinky because it's a short finger.
Sure.
So eventually all the kids in the class are calling me Pinky, making fun of me. And I was one of the smartest guys in the class. So what happened was, some of the students from class would come home on certain days so I can help them with their homework. And when they would come to my house to do homework, they would call me Pinky at home. And my mother is listening to them calling me Pinky. She starts calling me Pinky.
So it stuck. and
today I'm still Pinky.
And that's a good story. I like that.
It's a true story.
And I love true stories.
You want me to put...
to James Reno, okay. But anything you want, as long as your name is on there. That's a paint marker, so you gotta, you know.
Okay.
That's beautiful. That's
okay.
Great.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Sorry that I ruined your label.
That's okay. Now it's more valuable than ever.
How are you?
This is my lovely assistant.
How are you?
No.
You remind me, now that I'm looking, I work with an artist called, oh my God, back in the 80s in the recording studio.
Vanguard or
No, the name of not Vanguard. It was a dance rock project, 4-song EP. Him and his wife, and both of you have that aura, but you have more of the appearance of the artist.
Maybe I even have the record.
Rape of Orchids was the LP name. Ian North. Ian North.
This was a New York City project?
Yes.
Because you're based here, so I figured. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up.
Ian North, Rape of Orchids was the LP. He produced it. He was a songwriter. He produced it. I did a mix on one of the records. And his wife, Debbie, sang a different song, but she sings on that album. So it's a dance rock, DOR type of
dance
LP.
Rock.
Ian North.
I'll look at it. But what label?
It's a small independent label.
Okay.
I can't remember. Yeah.
I'll look it up. All right.
Yeah, but
okay.
Vibrations.
You want hang your...
Sure. You know, I was mentioning to you that I DJ'd at a club called Cartoon Alley on the Upper West Side, and I mentioned 85th Street. No, it was 84th Street. So that's my correction.
It was on West 84th.
We probably should save this for the interview, but whatever. West 84th, there's a church over here.
Yes, and I think there's a vacated, like a parking lot or a vacated area.
Yeah, that's the school. You talking about the school yard?
Yes, well,
It looks like a parking lot.
That's where the club may have been. It was an after-hours type of club, and I played late till morning, and I was spinning Motown and dance rock and disco and funk and R&B and a whole fusion of reggae too. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of record companies come in and hang out with me, give me free records, and enjoy the atmosphere. The club was.
Why don't we come into the interview space and listen to the pre-interview, I guess.
Okay.